Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time of day, whatever part of the day it is for you. Welcome to the ADL 320 channel. Thanks for joining us here today. I am doing a little bit of a different flight here. I popped back over into X-Plane 11 for an opportunity to fly out the fantastic Hot Start TBM 900. It's a model put out by Hot Start. I think it's made available actually out there on X Aviation, and it's a fantastic platform. Great airplane, very very deep, great system simulations, and for being an X-plane, it actually flies really really well. And I don't mean that on a pun on X-plane. I actually love X-plane. I still use it in between sim sessions in Flight Simulator, and really do enjoy it. It's a very nice model as it sits here on the ramp. They've actually had some pretty neat things added to it. I'll make the disclaimer, and this is no way at all meant to be a comparison between any flight simulator, Microsoft Flight Simulator or other. I'll call some things out because obviously some people are looking at this and saying, hey, we've got one in Microsoft Flight Sim, and we do, and it's actually really nice, especially with the I want to give a shout out to Muggs, who has done a fantastic job with the TBM improvement mod for that airplane. It's made it really enjoyable to fly. So commend him for that effort doing that as freeware there. This is obviously a payware model, so you're going to expect that there's going to be some of that capability that Muggs has added to his model that lives here. And this is a great application of it. You can see some things that you would expect to see in some payware models, doors that operate, which we also have in MSFS, but then some of the goodies like the tie downs and the the exhaust covers and the remove before flight tags that you'll see on the airplane, and a full-on ability to do modifications to it. One of the things that's cool, as you can see, I've got my fin number is November 978 Alpha Lima, and a paint scheme which I chose on my own, and I can customize that here with some of the tools that are available in the setup for the aircraft itself, which is quite cool. You've got a maintenance manager, which is quite neat with this airplane. It is one of those aircraft that remembers its state, so it behooves you to fly it well and fly it correctly. Otherwise, you'll have issues during your next flight. I've already spent an ungodly amount of money because I had a Hot Start, aptly named for the developers here, on the aircraft itself. If you take a look at something like the engine, you can pull up this maintenance manager, and I'm sure it's probably hard to see online, but I'll talk you through it real quick. And you can see things that are worn out on the engine itself. If I open the engine, it'll break down all these components. I mean, look at that, and you can see all the stuff that's here. And you're just basically looking to see things that are green, but it covers everything: igniters, fuel nozzles, fuel pumps, basically everything that you would have to go through if you had to do a complete TBO or complete overhaul of the PT6 engine that's in this aircraft. You can tell that my runtime is about 3.8 hours on oil, and it's dirty. And if I change it, it's going to cost me, quote unquote, $650. Well, I had a complete rebuild. Me fooling around with the thrust lever in the airplane and completely Chernobyled the engine, and it cost me $1.8 million. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting that it's there. You can, of course, get rid of that. There's an accelerated wear model that you can do. And just take a look here. It keeps track of all the maintenance for you, right? So if you go back and you can look here in my past history, I've replaced turbines, I've replaced a compressor with a new part, fuel nozzles, replaced a combustor. So all this was as a result of my issue that I had with the throttle being not calibrated correctly, and because of that, it blew up the engine. Some people might not like that level of realism in their airplane, but if you do, it's all here, man, and it's really super cool. Every major component of the engine of the aircraft itself is available here, and you can, replace things if stuff gets damaged or broken from mishandling it. Refill your oxygen, all that good stuff. So it's really quite cool to do that. Of course, you've got a payload manager. No proper payware aircraft should be available without a proper payload manager. And this one is interesting because you can reach everything here, right? I can add my GPU. It even tells me things like, hey, man, you're sitting in the plane in a hot Arizona sun and you're starting to get warm, you should turn on the engine and get the air conditioner going. Yeah, that complex. But built into this very simple to use payload and weight and balance, or weight and mass as I think they call it here, same thing, is a great graph that you can see exactly where your airplane is sitting. I can control and take off my caps if I want. I can also do it manually by walking around the aircraft. But I can take all those things on and off. I can fill the fuel tanks up from here. One thing that is interesting here is as you do that with the fuel, if you come around, you'll see that my fuel tank caps are actually off, and then I can simulate, filling up the tanks with a little bit of jet fuel here, some kerosene, if you will. So it's nice to be able to do that and set up and immediately see what your resulting takeoff weight and mass is on the chart, and make sure that you're within the envelope here, which is really cool. Also realistically simulated is the fact that, and I've done this too, you forget that you've pulled off these fuel caps when you've refueled, and you go take off and you start seeing your fuel, like, where the heck's my fuel going? And it's coming out of the tank because you forgot to put the caps back on. It can happen in real life, so they actually simulate it here, which is quite nice. So you can get rid of all your static discharge wicks. You can open and close your doors from here. It's nice animation on the doors itself, which is kind of cool to see. You've got your front door, you've got your baggage compartment that you can open up. So remove all the tie downs and all the caps and get that out of the way. And then I can go into payload, and then I can load a nice pilot. And if I'd like to add a little bit more weight, I can put a nice co-pilot in there if I wanted to. We can then see the result again of that weight, where I see where I'm going to be for takeoff, and my estimated landing weight as well. I can put some aft cargo in there if I want to throw a little bit of that in there, and the door automatically opens when I do that, to actually help me visualize kind of loading that cargo, which is kind of cool. So really, really neat piece of kit there to be able to do that on the payload side. Got your wheel chocks, you can put those in place or take them off. They're effectively on the mains there. You can pull those off, all the stuff that you would normally do when you're coming up to the airplane before a flight. I can hook up the GPU, which is neat. Now I'll show you that. That's simulated. Door opens up. The little JetGo 28-volt GPU fires up, makes a whole ton of noise, and you start paying for that at $50 an hour, and it will keep track of the amount of money you've burned up on that GPU. So typically not needed on the ground unless you've got some really long IFR clearance that you've got to string into the displays here, and you don't want to be burning up your battery, or it's winter time and you need as much juice as you can get. You might call for the cart and pay the fee for that, but we don't need that. So we're going to go ahead and shut it down and put it away and save some noise. And you've also got a nice tow bar that you can then use to actually move the aircraft around on the ramp in and out of the hangar, which is kind of cool. So that gives you an idea of what's set up here. But we're going to go ahead and get ourselves settled in the airplane. And for right now, I'm going to go through a quick cursory check and just walk through everything. I haven't flown this in quite a while, so I'm a little bit off on my my procedures, but I'm going to just kind of go through it as I go and give you all a feel for how this aircraft operates. As you know, if you're familiar with any of the others in the 940, this panel, the ECS, the Environmental Control System, is a little bit different here in the 900 than it is in the 930, but effectively they function kind of the same. You do have the keypad here that you can do to interact with the FMS on the Garmin from the keypad here, which is nice. It gives you an option to do that. But yeah, pretty much everything else overhead is all the same. There are some key differences that I want to call out, and I've been kind of mentioning this quite a bit on the forum and in the MSFS site around, well, a couple things that really drive me a little annoyingly is that when you do load into the MSFS, the bleed air system is turned on, so you always have to go turn that off. And then this crash bar that's here, they call it, which actually does function. It has a purpose. It's not just there to just make it easy to turn off the GPU and the generator. Of course, that's what it does. But when you flip it on, it actually does provide some basic power to the airplane, and that's never been simulated in the MSFS TBM, which is one of those things, you know, I'd like to see us get to. So I'm going to get the parking brakes on, and you know, the same usual function. Now I've got to make sure that my throttle is working properly, and this is another thing that I would love to see us get to in flight sim. Again, I said I wasn't going to compare, but it's kind of hard not to when you're doing some stuff and going back and forth, because even for me, that's the one thing that if you do have multiple sims, you've got to then do the mental gymnastics of, okay, wait, how do I set this in this sim, and what do I do here when it's that? I love the way the profiles are set up in MSFS, because I can basically, instead of me having to go in every freaking time I go into the simulator, I've got to change my control sets. The controls that I create can be assigned to this aircraft and any other aircraft I like. Because look at this here. So if I created, let's say I had a couple TBMs, you know, maybe I had a 930 and a 940, and you know, when they came out for the sim, right, I don't want to go make profiles for all of them. They're all going to fly exactly the same pretty much. Let's say I kept them all generic. Well, I can create one profile and then assign that one profile to multiple airplanes. That's really convenient, but what's most convenient to me is when I do fire up this aircraft, it already selects the right control profile for it. I don't have to go screwing around with selecting it from a list and clicking it and waiting for it to load and all this nonsense. So really wish that could be sorted over time and get that going. So I've got my device with Thrustmaster. I've got the Bravo throttle quadrant here set. I think I should be good. So I'm going to trust that my configuration is as set, because I don't want to go screwing around with this, because the last time I did it, I broke something. It is noted in the law, in the manuals for the TBM, that is true, that you shouldn't be moving this around if it's not on, because it does have some impact on the functionality of the airplane. So we're going to go ahead and make sure everything is set. We got all of our lights off, crash bars down. We've already checked over here that the environmental control system's off. We've got a fuel tank set. This we have our override is off, trim's good, throttle's closed, flaps up, environmental control system's off over here, alternate static pushed in, and my standby is off. So we're good. I don't have a ton of hours on this. I've got 57.8 hours on the Hobbs on this one. So just under 60 hours I've flown this airplane since I've installed it. I had to reinstall it at one point in time, so that's, you know, not showing everything, but it is kind of cool that it, again, keeps track of all that stuff for you while you're in the airplane. That's kind of the stuff you expect to see in the sim. So we're going to go ahead and get things going. The first thing I'm going to do is reach up here and turn my oxygen on, power on the crash bar, and then watch down here. So see my left PFD will start to power up. I get my standby, it comes on, and it goes through its aligning process. That's really all I need, right? Is to get me going for the start. So just showing you the fact that it does indeed get some
aural warning, okay.
There's the aural warning test. So all the functions of the TBM. Now we're going to bring it online with the battery. And we're going to bring the generator on. And these warnings are really super loud, so hopefully that's not blowing anybody away here, but it is really loud like that in the actual aircraft as well. You hear a couple things spooling up. We'll get the rest of our gauges turning on.
TAWS system test, okay.
There's the TAWS test. We can check our database. I might be a little old here. Obstacle database expires July 2021. Got to do an update on that at some point. Hit the soft key, get that back online. So this is a fairly, really well representation of the Garmin. Got all of our gauges here. Torque gauges are set. The one thing we'll notice, our volts going yellow, we can see that. The one thing that we will notice is that the prop feathering and everything does work here. So the start process in here is really quite accurate to the real aircraft. And so we're going to go ahead and get our door closed if I can remember how to do it. There we go. Close that. We're looking for that little red thing here, right? It's supposed to turn green once it's locked. And there it is. So we've got a nice sealed up, ready to be pressurized aircraft. Okay, so we're going to go ahead for the start. We're going to go back up to the top. We're going to get our nav lights on. I am going to get the auxiliary boost pump on. There. Clear the air there. Going to hold the starter up for 3 seconds and look if we can get a good start. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there it goes. Looking for 15% down here on the NG. There's 13. 15. Can move it up. We should get a light off here. There's a light off. ITT is rising. NG. Now we're looking for a hung start or hot start. And we're going to get a little warm here because it says overheating, but that's okay. It'll come back down. We got a time limit on that. It's coming back down. That's realistic considering the temperatures here, right? Once we get to 51%, the starter should cut out. 50%, there it goes. We're green. You can hear that kick back off. We're going to go high and back over. Now look on the right-hand side. You see they got this nice little gauge here to tell you where your throttles are, which is nice. And you can also see that my prop is going to start to unfeather, which it does not do in the sim for Microsoft right now. You can hear it even too. There's where the prop should be. It's out of feather right now. This left-hand side of the throttle is the unfeathered side of operation, and the right-hand side is for feather. The control mechanisms in MSFS for the throttle are really screwy right now. It's like a left click and a right click and drag, and it's kind of a pain. This one here, you can see up, down, left, and right. So it's very, very simple, and that's important because there are times during a check, at least in the 900, where you still had to go and feather the prop, and it's very difficult to do if you don't have either something set up as I do in this aircraft, I think. I just don't remember because it's been a while, where you can actually move that back and forth easily. But we got a good start. So we're going to go back up top real quick while I'm talking through this. And I go auxiliary boost pump to auto. Tanks are auto. AP trim's on. Oxygen's already been set. We're good there. Good down below. We're going to go get our inertial separator turned on. Stall and pitot heat going. Thank you for the noise. We're going to get the bleed on. That's coming on to auto. And we're going to turn our AC on. Fan speed's good. Airflow's good. And we'll get the AC going. So we can start cooling off a little bit. You'll notice that because the AC's on, listen to the engine. It went down a little bit. So the NG went down a little bit because the AC is presenting that load. Pretty cool. I don't need windshield heat on right now. We should be good. There's the warning for the inertial separator, which is on. That's all good. Now, I've got this set up to work, at least I thought I did, with my honeycomb. And, yeah, it looks like I'm going to have to fix that again because it's not set up for me to use my honeycomb for setting my altitudes and everything out. But that's okay. I can go ahead and set that real quick. I'm going to do an initial altitude of 5,000 feet. We're going to be taking off, let's see, wind is 230 at 2. Oh, sorry, guys. Party foul. Drop the mic. All right, let me get that set back up again. Sorry about that. The wind's out of the west, so we're going to be taking off out of runway 25 left here at Deer Valley. So we're going to just preset a couple things here to get us ready for that. All right. As mentioned, we're going to be doing a short flight from Phoenix Deer Valley Airport up to Sedona. So we're going to go ahead and first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and check the ATIS. And I've got it turned down quite a bit. All right, wind 220.5, visibility more than 10, temperature 37, dew point 13, altimeter 29 or 79 or 29 or 79 on the box here. So that's what we want to put in. Yep, that's what I thought. Arriving 25 left, departing 25 left. Information uniform is current. All right, perfect. So we can switch that over. I can go over to ground. I'm not going to use any of this, but just giving you kind of an idea for how all this works here. Of how quickly we can change the navcom digits here. Ground's 0.8, and we're going to put tower on standby, which is 18.4. And in the COM 2, I'm going to get North Tower on standby, which is 120.2. This is my home airport, so forgive me, I know all this stuff by heart. 120.2, because typically what happens flying at Deer Valley, if you're going to the north, they will have you switch over and monitor the North Tower. You may not have to talk to them, but they want you to monitor them since you're crossed over. This is an interesting airport. It is one of the busier general aviation airports in the country, believe it or not. And so we have 2 parallel runways here, 7 left, 7 right, 25 left, 25 right. And we get quite a line of traffic out of here. Most mornings, most afternoons, we'll have student pilots flying here all night. Where I'm parked on the ramp is a flight school that's here, and it's actually just been recently purchased by United. Yep, United Airlines. And they're going to be training their pilots out of here, and that's where I rent from. So, great place. Recommend anybody interested in learning how to fly. Check them out. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get our route in now. Check down here, and I'm just going to go to flight plan. It looks like I've got something in here from before, so we're going to try to get rid of that. Oops. Let's go back to flight plan. And all right, I gotta bring back the memory banks here, as I said before, because it's a different kit here. So what I'm gonna do is go down and oops, wrong knob. I'm gonna delete that flight plan. All right, now we're gonna start all over again. So we're going to go KDVT. That's perfect. We're going to get an edit mode here. Then I can scroll down. First waypoint's going to be Führer. Okay, that's the right one. Enter, enter. And next waypoint's Oats. Very short route, so it's going to take a couple minutes here. That's it. That's the right one. Enter, enter. And then the final destination is Kilo Sierra Echo Zulu. That's Sedona, Arizona. Enter, enter. And turn off edit mode. And we have our route of flight. And don't need to do any procedures right now. I'm just going to do a quick little VFR guy to get us set up here for the departure. Let's see, I'm down here, cockpits. Okay, good, we're good there. So I can turn off my flight plan. And we have the nav map, so we can scroll through settings here, right? Which is in the G1000. There's my navigation map. I can do a traffic view. I do have weather radar, and it does work in this airplane, which is cool. There's my TAWS information, TAWS B. Of course, I'm on the ground, so it's all red right now. But I can go back up to nav, go over to waypoint, check in on my waypoints, get my nearest airport information, right? And then you get into the rest of the systems with flight plans and everything else. So this is cool to bring up frequencies and have it auto-tune for your radio, for your comms and everything else. That's really, really helpful to be able to do that. So we're going to do that, zoom out a little bit. I don't really need the taxi information here at Deer Valley. I know it pretty well. And you can see there's some other airplanes out here cruising around, so those will show up on the display. It does have sort of that Garmin synthetic vision view to it here, which is nice. And it's a really, really well thought out, well designed setup here. So go get my flaps in, take off. We have 3 checks, flaps indicated on the display, selected, and hard to see here, confirmed. Flaps takeoff position. We're good there. Let's go ahead and get our taxi light on. And got to remember how to taxi this thing, because I know there is a process for pulling this thing in and out of beta, which is quite important here. Let me get my brakes on. I'm going to take a look, release the brakes, and we're already starting to move, so don't really need to do a whole lot of application of thrust right now. Let's see if I can get beta to work here. There's a button I think I'm supposed to push to do that. Yeah, I'm going to have to check my... oh, you know what? I think it's this button here. Oh, and I'm not using that throttle, so I don't have that button. Oh, yeah. Shout out to Kevin Mosley, over at 3D, Kevin Mosley 3D Designs. He designed a fantastic TBM throttle handle, which is sized just like this guy right here. Looks just like it. Fits the same way, and it bolts right on, snaps right into the Honeycomb Bravo, just like their add-on kits, 3D printed. He's doing some really cool stuff, guys. You gotta check him out. I'll put a link in there to the video if you're interested in it, but it works really well. It works really, really well with this, and so it's nice to be able to use this in the airplane. I've just got to figure out. So right now, if you notice on the right-hand side, this is really super helpful here to be able to see, like, where is my throttle right now? Flight, idle. Now I'm in the flight range. There is a button I think to push, and it's probably this one here if it works for me, that I can go back into reverse and beta, really, because that's what we want when we're taxiing, because this thing gets going pretty quickly, as the real airplane does, and you want to be able to pull back into beta mode to get that prop down a little bit so that it's not pulling your head so much. So I've got to figure out what, now that I'm not using that throttle, I might just have to go put it back, because hang on one second, I'm actually going to have to do that, so bear with me a sec. So that's the one advantage to the Honeycomb set, is with the contactors in there. You know, there's a button on the standard single throttle level. There you go. See, listen to it. You can hear the prop bite right as I go back into beta. That's my taxi range. That's my flight range. So that there's a way in now with the Honeycomb that I can simulate clicking this button to move it forward and in and out, and that's how I get into reverse. So there's that button on the single throttle that I can use to get into flight idle and back into beta, so that I can control my taxi speed without having to use too much brakes. It's very handy. And the fact that you can actually hear the pitch change as you would, it's quite nice. So we're going to make the right-hand turn here and head on over to 25 left for the departure. Traffic was clear left. And again, you know, everybody can hate on X-plane scenery all you want. I don't care. I mean, I know it's not better than MSFS for sure. But you know, there's a lot more to be said about the eye candy and the pretty scenery. It's super helpful, and I love Flight Simulator, and it is going to become my default rig at some point. But there's still a value to being able to, you know, fly a properly simulated airplane, which we will also get to in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm confident of that. But so that's why I keep these. You know, those that have been in the hobby a long time and doing this a long time, as I have, I started in 1982 or 3, and whenever the hell Bruce Artwork first released Flight Sim, I've been doing it since then. And so, you know, if you're really into it, you acquire the new version. So I've had every single Flight Simulator version since the dawn of time. There's no reason not to, because everyone's better than the last one, and no exception here. MSFS is better than X-Plane in so many ways, and it's better than P3D in ways, and there are still ways that these other platforms are still solid at what they do, and there are some ways that they are better than MSFS. So there's no point in sitting here having this argument about, well, which one's better. Who cares? If you've got the space for it and you've got the money to invest in them, you're not saying you have to invest a crap ton. Most of my stuff in the next plane is add-ons and freeware. I bought some payware stuff, sure. But it's worth having them all because they all bring something unique to the table. Every one of them. So I'm not going to hate on any sim platform, but I'm happy to call out differences and things that I see. Yeah, the scenery here is not great, but what you're seeing also is not default scenery. I've spent some time because Arizona is my home state, and I do a lot of my own personal flying around here. I've done quite a bit of adding what they call these tiles, which you can do for free. So it's a tool called Ortho for XP. And so the orthographic tiles that you can freely download off the internet for free. You don't pay a dime. And you can just basically use a tool that puts them into the simulator and makes them available seamlessly. And they look pretty doggone good when you're in the air. I admit, not so much on the ground here. That's where obviously MSFS wins hands down. But in the air, it's really nice. And it's very sharp and super crisp. But the thing that I hear people complain about a lot on the MSFS forums now is how some of the scenery is not very crisp. And that is definitely one of the shortcomings that we have. But again, to balance it all out, there's no simulator on the planet that's giving you the world like MSFS is at the fidelity that it is, blurry or otherwise. Don't care. It looks great for what it's doing. And the fact that it's being fed to you, come on. These ortho tiles, just for me to have like most of the West region, I've got gigabytes worth of data that I've spent time. And, although it's free, it's not free. My time isn't free. And I'm spending all this time downloading all this stuff and then chewing up a lot of hard drive space to keep them up there. So just saying, nothing's free in life, right? And this is another one of those trade-offs that you've got to deal with. So you'll probably notice some things as I'm flying around as I get going here that's different with MSFS, the taxiway signs, the taxiway lights. We've got towers in here. There's traffic, of course, too, still. It's the same kind of stuff. Yeah, it's cartoon-like and it doesn't look great, but you know what? It does a decent enough job for what I'm after. So let me go ahead and, sorry again, set the brakes. And we're going to get everything else. So I'm just going to go through my quick flows here and look back on the checklist, make sure I haven't missed anything major. Starters on, ignitions, yeah. MP trims are good. Circuit breaker flight good. No separate is on. Let's see. Check out the starting engine, post after engine start. Okay. After engine start, throttle's been set, oil's good. So we got temperatures. Everything's looking good in the green. Electrical's good. Amps are down where they need to be. That's great. Generator's good. CAS, which is the crew alerting system, no messages there. We're good. Generators, CAS bleeds on. Autos, pressure mode set. Controls is required. Before taxi, DI system testing that. We got all the inertial steps on. We got trim set. We got flaps set. Now I saw shadows. Something just fly over me. MFD set. The LFE is another one of those things that doesn't quite work or doesn't work at all in MSFS is this LFE. That's called the landing field elevation, and that has to do with the pressurization system. The reason why you have the bleed air on the pressure setup is so that the pressurization system can do its job. It knows the elevation of the field you're taking off from. It knows where you're going to be landing because you keyed in the airport in the FMS. Now, if you didn't do that, you'd need to set this LFE, but it knows you're going to Sedona. It's 4830 MSL. Cool, I'm good. I've got the pressurization schedule already figured out, so no one blacks out on the flight up there, right? So that's all good. Takeoff trim is set. There is a pretty nasty trait. I mean, again, at the end of the day, this is a big old single engine. Just because it's a turbine engine in the front of this thing, P factor doesn't care. It still works in this airplane too, and there's a real nasty amount of torque that'll come in that right rudder. So if you look, there's a white mark which indicates where the rudder's neutralized, right? And then there's a green mark over to the right. That's where you're supposed to trim the rudder up for takeoff in the TBM. What is it, 1,000 or 900 and some odd SHP. and a lot of torque coming out of that engine. So it is going to yaw that nose to the left, and you need to counteract it to the right. If you don't do it, you're going to be dancing all over the rudder going down the runway, which ain't good. And I might have to do that because I don't think I've got my trims set. Normally I have my hat set to do left and right, but because I kind of compromise that on being able to view, I'm not quite there. But I can get my takeoff trim set. You can hear that clicking away, right? We've got our takeoff trim set. The rudder, I cannot do that manually, so I'm going to have to compromise, guys. So I'm going to tell you right now, the takeoff's going to be a little iffy because I don't have my control set up the way I need to be able to turn that rudder trim. At least I don't think so. So because of that, I'm going to hold off on, because my trim wheel is set for my trim wheel, which is what it should be. It's what it should do, and I don't have, or do I? Hold on. No, I didn't do that. That's my autopilot disconnect button. So, all right, sorry any explaining. Just figured I'd try to see if I had it set. We'll get around that. It's not a problem. So taxi lights are on. We're good there. Before lineup, landing lights, we'll get those in a second. Navs, strobes, we can go ahead and get the strobes on now since we're kind of close to the runway environment. Ignition's as required. We have that on auto. Auxiliary boost pumps in auto. Fuel selector is in auto. DI system is not needed. We do have the pitot. Stall heats turned on. Inertial steps on. Trims are set for takeoff. Flaps are set for takeoff now as well as confirmed. We checked that 3 times. ACs as required. Bleeds auto. LFE we've checked. Fuel gauges are good and fuel is full as we've confirmed on the ramp. Battery check is below 50 amps. And we are at 39 here, so we're good on the battery amps on that side. EIS is checked. It's all good. CAS is checked. We're clean there as well. And altimeter setting we've confirmed as well. Propeller RPM should be in the green sector, which it is. It's out of the yellow. Brakes. So that's for the normal takeoff process, right? Now there was, and I think it was somewhere where you would want to feather just to make sure that the system is working properly, that you can feather the prop. And we can do that here. Watch. Prop goes in. Bring it back out. We do that twice. And that's really just to check the functionality of the feathering system. I don't need to go as deep as I just did there, but just giving you a sense of what happens. It takes a while to recover, right? Here it comes. But this is real functionality in the real airplane, and this is how it hopefully will eventually work in MSFS. So the prop will recover. I'm just doing another quick feather. It's in. Let's bring it out. And flaps are all set. All right, we're good. Once we get our prop back in, inertial steps in, doors are closed, seatbelts on, everything is set. Everything is set up here the way we need it to be. We'll go ahead and get our landing lights on now. Just we're going to do a takeoff. I don't want to be messing around with stuff since I'm single pilot right now. So we're going to release the brakes. And taxi on up. We're going to assume ATC is giving us line up and wait. So we'll do so. The beauty in the H throttle really is simplistic if you think about it. People are kind of like, why does it have that? Well, think about what it's done. It's one lever that's replaced 3. Well, really 2, because turboprop doesn't have a mixture control anyway. But it's replaced the propeller. You don't need to have the propeller. It's going to keep the prop where it needs to sit at all times. It's governed, and you only need to feather the prop in situations where there's an emergency or, engine out, something like that, or during those tests. And so hence that right side is all the feathering side, and it goes from low to high idle like any other turboprop. And the left side is completely your flight mode where you're going to use it for throttle and moving the aircraft to the air. So that's it. We're going to synchronize our heading. We'll do a right turnout. Any issues before V1 we'll cancel before takeoff on the runway. Anything that's non-critical to flight before we get airborne, we'll continue to fly the airplane and alert ATC to our emergencies and our intentions if we need to return back to the airport. And hopefully there's no questions. All right, so we're good to go. We're going to get our flight directors on. Well, I should have did that while I was sitting there. Actually, I had them on already. Why did I turn them off? And I'm not going to preset anything just yet. We'll get that when we're going. But actually, I could do, let's see. We'll get into, what are we going to do here? What are we going on? Let's do heading mode. And I like to climb out in FLC. And we set our cruise speed of 124 knots, which is our normal climb speed. All right. So we're going to go for power here. Try to keep the torque below 90%. And we're going to be rotating between 85 and 90 knots. Start lifting the lows at 85. Rotation speed is 90 knots. And we're going to pitch to climb up at 124. Flaps come up at 115. So here we go. Brake release. Keep an eye on the ITTs. Gradually gain the power. Just get it to right about 90 is good. ITTs are still looking good. Airspeed's very good. Coming up on 80 knots. 85, there's a rotation. We'll go ahead and smoothly rotate. Positive rate of climb. Gears coming up. There's, oops, a little drift there. Not doing the greatest job at keeping myself over the runway environment here, but I'll correct that real quick. As we get out to the freeway here, and then we'll make our right turn up. That's usually what Deer Valley would end up telling us, departure to the right, north departures approved, monitor North Tower. There's 115 knots, good climb rates going in, flaps coming up. There's the I-17 freeway. Start turning north now. There's our 124 knots. We'll pull back and pitch. And we'll try to maintain that 124 on the climb out with the 5,000. Keep my heading mug going. Start using some trim here. And we're going to get ourselves head up so we can hit direct over to Firar, which is our first waypoint on the flight. Oh, you know what? There we go. It even comes with a set of Bose noise reduction headsets, so I don't have to sit and listen to that PT6 screaming away at me. Quite nice. So, yeah, we're going to let this nose pitch up. It's a little unnerving because 124 knots is kind of slow. I'm going to keep the altitude going here. We're going up to 1,000 today. It's a little bumpy out here. All right, so we're going to go in the heading mode right now, and I'm going to go heading as I'm on flight to 128. So I'm going to just go ahead and hit yaw damper, autopilot's on. We're going to maintain our heading, and now I can use my wheel here to dial in 124 knots and let the airplane climb out at 124 knots. And then we'll intercept our GPS course here, which will take us up. Or I could, of course, do a direct to, but we're on a general heading right now. We're going to go ahead and switch over to COM 2, and we'll go ahead and monitor South Tower. 124 knots, looking good. We're climbing out at 1,800 feet per minute. That's looking quite good. I'm still only 81% torque. I mean, I can push this all the way up to pretty much 100% torque. So one thing that's awesome with the TBM is it's geared, set to run. As long as I maintain my temperatures, right? And you look at my ITTs are climbing there a little bit, right? So see, that's about my limit. And here in Arizona, well, we're looking at 22 degrees outside right now. On a hot day, you're going to temp out before anything else. In some cases you might torque out, especially, depending on the temperatures, right? If it's cooler day outside, you might hit your torque peak before you hit your ITTs. But out here, I'm going to temp out well before I torque out. I'm 90%. I could be climbing at 100% torque in this airplane in the right conditions. In fact, even cruise settings for the airplane, when you get up into the flight levels even, you can be 100% torque mostly up to a certain point, right? It all depends on the temperature and everything else, but it does a really good job of simulating that, right? Let's do a quick departure flow. So we're pretty much out of the air traffic area now. We're going to go and get our Landing lights off, strobes will continue to stay on. Everything is good to set up here. We'll continue to monitor our pressurization as we climb. Now passing 8,700 already. Now we're at 2,000 feet a minute, climbing out really good at 86%. The ITTs will come down a little bit, as we climb. But for right now, the other thing I've got to do now that I'm out of any clouds or precipitation or anything else is get the inertial step off, right? So we're gonna, before we do that, now the newer airplane has a function for that helps you with that. You got to be careful now when you turn this inertial step off. It is going to introduce more torque because it's taking that away from you now. So you're going to have to power back a little bit. And I'd probably go good 12 or so, maybe get into the 70s, turn off the inertial separator. And it takes about 30 seconds before that comes off. You'll see the light go away. Watch your torque will climb. There it starts climbing now, 71. Now look at what happened also. I got a caret on the MFD. On the torque, that white caret is kind of telling me where I can set my torque setting. That's where I can be right now. You notice the ITTs came down? Yeah. So we're approaching our 11,000 feet. We're 124 knots in the climb still. And we're going to just let this grab all the airspeed at once. I'm close enough to my route now. I'm going to go ahead and punch nav. Confirm it is now GPS. Autopilot's on, yaw damper's on. We're maintaining 11,000 feet. Airspeed's increasing. We're looking pretty good. So as I mentioned before with the scenery, this is the Phoenix area. This is kind of North Phoenix, North Scottsdale right here. This is Cave Creek right here below us with the area here. This is and you can see the difference in the tile work. Sometimes you might get a higher level resolution and you can pick the resolution you want. So some areas might be a better resolution than others, but quite frankly, for what we've got here, it's really not that bad. You can see some of the houses down there. X-Plane does put buildings in, it does generate buildings, and you can see those here. They're sticking up. They're 3D. It's not flat. So if there's a house there's probably a house in the sim. It's very similar. It's just not doing it sort of procedurally as it's done in MSFS. So it is a little bit different, but the mountains come in really great detail. This all the way out here is an area called Four Peaks. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 peaks there on that mountain. You can really see the Superstition Mountains are out here. So you get a lot of good definition of the landscape in Flight Sim, which is nice to be able to see the area pretty well. So just thought I'd kind of point out some of that on the way out. So we're cruising at 11,000. I could certainly go a little bit higher, but it's a short flight, and I wanted to kind of be able to look at some of the scenery levels here. So I figured I'd keep us at this flight level for now. I always like to keep my heading centered in case I need to come out of it. We're going to climb now. We got a true airspeed of 255 knots. Again, given our altitude right now, it's not looking bad. I really hope the engine sounds not too loud in the background. Like how they've integrated the iPad. This same screen is someone you'll see in a lot of different add-ons for X-Plane. But it's got the full functionality. You can take a look at charts. You can load your own stuff in here like I've got here. If you wanted to do that, you can take a look at the maps, and it'll bring you like the OpenStreetMap stuff that you can just track yourself along, which is kind of cool. This is just basic functionality that comes with the sim kind of thing. The Navigraph integration is much like what we've seen, right? So if you go to, this is called AviTab. This is what this is. So a lot of airplanes will integrate this. And this is a free plugin. AviTab is totally free. You don't pay a dime for it. It's a free plugin. And if you have Navigraph subscription, of course, you can go to airports. And I can do, let's see, KSEZ, since that's where we're going. Enter that in. There's all the information I want to know about Sedona on the pad, and then if I go to the list, it'll load up all the charts for me. And if I just want to get an overview of the airport, it'll pull it up, and it is geo-referenced. So as you fly around, it'll give you all the information. You can zoom in. Now I can do the same thing. I think it's been a while. believe I can do the same thing over here as well. So, one other thing I forgot to mention, I actually should have did this when I was going, is, let me, hold on a second. I'm going to get some trims power set. So we've got plenty of ITT room. We're going to push this on up, follow that white mark, get about 100% on the torque. There we go. I want to see, once you go over, it goes right into the yellow. So it's literally a razor's edge. And we're going to pull it down a little bit just to give me a buffer. I don't, this thing can tend to drift a little bit. So, but it's very accurate, right? How accurate this is. I know in MSFS, when I'm trying to do this in the TBM, you can pull it back and it'll drop like 6%, then you got to push it forward and climb 6%. It's a process of elimination. I'm doing very, very minute movements on the throttle lever, and it's taking it extremely incrementally, which is beautiful. And I put it at 99 and let it sit there. Prop set at 2000, which is where it's governed to be. NG's at 96. My TTs are looking good at 752. I'm in a good place. Oil pressure's good. Oil temperature's good. Everything's looking great here. So I meant to say there's a checklist. It's a nice integrated checklist, which is how it would be in the real airplane. So you can go through and, scroll through the items and check them off if you wanted to. Go to, let's see, what we're going to do normal procedures. We're going to do starting engine. I can do all these. Look, after takeoff, cruise, climb. So let's go to the cruise checklist. Oh, whoops. Let's try that again. Let's go to the cruise checklist. As you can tell, my scroll wheel is also my zoom. And here's the, did I hit climb? Sorry guys, I'm being a bonehead here. Cruise. Enter. Okay. Observe, throttle, adjust. Okay, check. Observe, torque, NG, NP, ITT, and oil pressure limitations. All right, pressurization, we'll check. That's what I talked about earlier. LFE set. Pressurization's in the green. We're looking good there. We can check that off. Gauges, check. Regularly checked. Consumption. What are we doing consumption-wise? We're burning, we're burning 76 gallons per hour, which is not unheard of at this lower altitude for us. So 76 gallons per hour is what I would expect. Again, you can cross-check all this, of course, in the book. We're going to check expected fuel at destination, which we'll have plenty because we left full. Cruise parameters, engine data, check DI system. We don't need any de-icing. We have no weather. Go to the next checklist and it'll automatically bring up descent checks. So we'll set our altimeter and get all that going. Now, ATIS over there at Sedona is 1852, so we can go ahead and queue that up and get that ready. It should probably be coming in here pretty soon. 1852. And we're getting it. Sky conditions 6300 scattered, temperature 13, dew point 10, altimeter 3019er. So we're going to set the altimeter. Now, its temperature's 13. You're probably going, wait a minute, it's daytime in Arizona. How's it 13? Well, it's actually nighttime. I'm setting it to daytime because I thought it would be a better representation to see what's going on in the daytime than trying to do it at night. So 3019, wow, that's gone up quite a bit, huh? So notice, yeah, obviously that's changed my cruise, so airplane's gonna fix that for me. So set it once, set it twice. All right. Switch back over. I don't need that anymore. Look at the torque. It's creeped up on me a little bit, right? So we're gonna pull that back down. And that's why I said sometimes I don't like to cruise that high. You just gotta pay attention to this thing. There's no auto throttle in this airplane, so you have to really be aware of what's going on. Now the 940 has an auto throttle, which is pretty sweet. I don't know if it affects the cruise, but it definitely affects it for takeoff. Love to learn a little bit more about that, but it's pretty good. Don't need to worry about that. Gauges, fullest tank. Okay, it's going to set that. Passenger briefing as required. Seatbelt hold. So checklist complete on that. So I just wanted to show you that we've got the ability to run checklists in the TBM, which is nice. So I can do a return. If I go to show the charts, you can do that here. See, so I've got Deer Valley's chart up here, integrated. If I wanted to pull up our destination airport, I could probably do that here. I think the way you'd want to do that is you want to go to flight plan, go here, go like this. Let's see, do a menu maybe. I gotta remember where this is. Guys might know. I can do my procedures. I don't want to do that though. I don't want to select any approaches. I'm just gonna fly manually. No, that's my view, which I can change wide to narrow, cumulative, back. It's all in here. Yeah, there is a way to do that, and that'll get you there quicker than having to go type it into the thing. But you can do it. Actually, it's not that bad because I've got the keyboard, so I can enter in Sedona really quickly, and it'll give me the available charts that I can cruise through. So there's your DPs, there's your stars. Sometimes it says chart not available and it has to load, but maybe it doesn't. I don't think there's any stars there aren't. So I can bring up the different approaches here. There's GPS runway 3. There's probably others that I can pull up, but that's the only one that's a IFR approach into there. So point being is you can actually go ahead and you can definitely bring up charts. Just like any Garmin device, you just hit and hold the clear button. It'll take you right back to the screen. So we got 12.5 miles to go to Oates and starting in. So the field elevation at Sedona is 4831. I've got about 6,000 feet to lose. So I'm going to start dropping on down now to about 7,000. Actually, we'll take it down to 6. And we're going to do that in VS mode. Just hit VS and we're going to go down to 1,000 feet a minute. And I'm just going to power throttle it back. Oops, I kicked off the autopilot by accident. Sorry, guys. All right. I'm queuing up heading mode. So this is the Sedona area. Again, still part of my ortho scenery. Again, not the greatest, but it gives you a good sense of what's actually going on. It's not quite bad to fly in. We got the San Francisco peaks ahead of us. Flagstaff is right up here as well. And we're going to see how bad we can butcher this landing in this airplane because I haven't done it in a while. I'm going to go ahead and get in heading mode now. And Sedona Airport sits on a mesa, which is right there. And I kind of want to do one of these numbers to jog in there. So we're going to start slowing up because I don't want to come screaming into the airport area at 200 knots. We're going to go hit our pulse lights on. And that'll be so that we can see. I can show you that what that looks like. There's the pulse lights. Cool to be able to do that view, huh? Just gonna start turning into the airport, and we'll make a left entry into Sedona. Runway 21 is going to be our target. And by now, about, 10 miles out or so, I'd be calling traffic on the way into the airport on the Unicom frequency, which I didn't tune, but I didn't, know what to do here. It's 23.0 if you wanted to do it, right? It's just 23.0. There you go. Sedona Unicom. This is TBM 978 Alpha Lima with you 10 miles to the southwest. Will be inbound left traffic, runway 21 to land. Full stop, Sedona. And there's your call for all those that are wanting to know how it's done. Still trying to get slowed up here. Let's bring the torque back. Now, I don't want to go back too far because if I do that, the system freaks out thinking, hey man, you don't have your gear down, which I don't. And you can drop it below 171 knots, I believe it is. Right here on this little placard will tell you. There's your weights. Maneuvering speed's 158. Landing gear extended max speed 178. So basically 178 landing gear operating speed though is 178 down, right? So I can take it down at 178 and I can bring my flaps down. Maximum operating speed VMO is 266. Flaps extended for the takeoff configuration, which is the first flap, is 178. So those two both nicely coincide. Autopilot's now coming off. We're going to fly this manually, get our speed down. We're going to go get our first knots of flaps in. And while I'm at it, just get us configured, drop in the gear. And watch that little bubble, right? You see that push that I got from the extra lift with putting the flaps in, so we're going to compensate for that. We're going to run our approach speed around 110 knots. Right around some of the beautiful landscape here of Sedona. I'll try to square this off a little bit. And I know I'm below my speed, but my altitude rather. I'll get some trim because I'm feeling a little heavy on the controls right now. It's a fun airport to fly into. In the summer, you got to be careful of the updrafts and downdrafts. It's on a mesa, so you can get some wind coming in. This was an add-on airport, I think, and it's done a really crappy job of blending in the actual scenery. The hills there, not great. So this is where it's nice having the TAWS system and also having the synthetic vision. Approach is looking good. Fuel's looking good. We're set up. Speeds are good. All right, we're coming to beam right now. And get ourselves configured for the approach speed. Get us down around 90 knots. Give myself plenty of room to maneuver because this is one of those, at least for me anyway, because I don't really do a good job of making the turn here. I might be a little off set when I turn because I'm not actually, as you can see, I'm not square to the runway. And there's the 500-foot call. A little bit more trim here. Got quite a bit of nose up trim helped me out. We'll go ahead and start that turn. Get the full landing lights on now. Turn the pulses off. Looking to maintain my speed. I'm going to bring it down to about 85 knots on the final. Yaw damper's coming off. Oops, that's off already. Good. Yeah, see there, I'm way off. Getting slow. So that's a nice warning that you get here. We can clean this up though. Just add a little bit of torque. I got myself into trouble there. Very low. Should be up much higher than that. Clear that ridge. And then we should be able to drop on down in there. Trade some of that altitude now. Pull the power back. Notice that prop stays right where it is at 2,000 RPM. You don't hear a change in the sound like you did in MSFS. Now we're going to come down because we're coming down lower. Sync rate's a little high. It's all right. We can clean that up. No worries. We want that. Going to land a little long. Power's coming off. Airspeed. That's what we want. Touchdown. Add a little reverse. Haven't even touched the brakes yet. We'll take the second turn off. Flight idle. get the flaps up to help us with the lift, and we'll turn off the runway. So other than getting ourselves a little out of shape coming in on the approach, we managed to salvage it. Haven't flown a Sedona in quite a while, so I'm happy with that. It's a safe approach. Gonna stop here. Taxi lights on, strobe lights coming off. Anything else we can clean up here? Looking pretty good. Flaps are up. We'll reset trims. And again, we're clear of the runway, so I didn't make the rest of the calls, as you obviously heard. But it's pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and taxi in, and I'll shut her down and talk you through that real quick. Don't like to do a whole lot while I'm taxiing, obviously, right? I want to pay attention to what's going on around me, so we're just going to get ourselves in set first. And we'll take one of these spots over here. I think I'll run over the chocks here. Go in the flight idle. We'll park it right here. Set of brakes. Hold on to your ears. All right. Sorry, guys. That's super annoying. Okay. Get our taxi light off. Strobe lights off. We're going to get the pitot heat and pitos off. We can turn off our oxygen now. And we'll get the rest of this here in just a minute. Now, shutting down. Basically, we're just going to do a quick, keep it in idle here for right, and then we're going to pull it over into high idle and then low idle for 15 seconds. So we'll go from thrust idle, which is where we're at now, flight idle, right? Pop it over, pull down. We're going to go into low idle for 15 seconds. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, power off. And then we would turn off the inertial separator, which I think I accidentally turned off. And forgot, should have had the bleeds off first. Take my headset off now. Now we're going to get all these bings and bongs here going. So we're going to get the auxiliary boost pump off, manual. Trims off, got oxygen off. All right, flight idle set here, and everything's off below. AC's coming off, and again, remember this aircraft remembers its state. So if you forget to turn the bleeds off or forget to turn something off, it will remember that, and the next time you start, you might have a nasty surprise if you don't go through your checklist. So this is one of those airplanes that, as you can see from even me, just doing it right then and going through memory, I forgot to turn my bleeds off and before we shut down. So that's something I should have done before we actually turned off the engine and cut the fuel supply. So that's it for now, right? You've got it at the ramp. You're set up. Now to shut everything down, make sure we're off here. Lights off, nav lights off. Everything's set here, and we just go ahead and pull that crash bar. Everything powers off except for our standby. Now I see that it shuts down in about 4.5 minutes. I can change that by going here, 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 shut down, hold, and it will power that off for me. Open up our door, and we're good to go. Listen closely and you'll hear the ticking of the hot metal of the engine. Hang on one, I'll show you that. You can see there's still heat coming out of the pipes there, right? I mean, these guys really did think of everything. Listen to that. Yeah, that popping and tinging is the sound of hot metal contracting as it cools. Yeah, it's a really well-modeled airplane. Glad you got the chance to to come along for a quick ride. Appreciate you being here with me. If you really enjoyed that video, I look forward to doing more just like it. Leave me a couple comments below if you have some thoughts you want to share, something you'd like to see, or questions you have about the flight today. By all means, like it if you liked it, and please subscribe if you're interested. I'd love to try to get this channel up. I'm brand new at this, so just trying to get after it. So thanks again for flying along with us, and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.